Well, hello. Welcome to the field. Right this minute, we're at Boy Scout camp. Today is part 3 of the 3-day survival challenge, the field exercise, finally, to see if I can spend the night out in emergency shelters, make 2 shelters, whatever you want to call them, with the gear I carry. Now, I will tell you right up front, I packed for winter. The temperatures are supposed to be highs of mid 30s, lows of low 20s. It is beautiful, clear skies for the next week. How that happened in Oregon in the middle of January, I'll never know, but thank you, Lord, for it. We have put together the packs and a bunch of gear, and I'm going to go over a little bit of it because I don't want to bore you again with how much we have. So, it is too heavy, and I may end up paring it down before I get out there. But in the wintertime, you're going to take along. I have talked to a lot of guys recently doing research for this and found that the people I know, when they go hunting, especially deer hunting in the wet, miserable fall type weather, they take the utmost emergency stuff. Small fire starting stuff, couple Mylar blankets, paper towels, toilet paper, of course, water, of course, life straw or some sort of water filtering thing so they don't have to carry, like I am, 3 liters of water. A straight blade knife, sometimes a hatchet, sometimes saws to process game and other stuff. Along with that, they take their electronics. Now, we're not talking about Tiatuaki. We're not talking about shit hit the fan. We're not talking about any of that today. We're talking about if you get lost mushroom hunting or whatever you're doing out in the wilderness. You're just on a hike and somehow you lost the trail you were on and you end up in the bottom of a canyon. Now you don't know what to do or where you are. On my cell phone, I have Onyx Hunt maps that I've downloaded so they work offline and can track me and show me right where I am. Yes, I know cell phones can go dead. In here, taking up more space, is that crank radio we showed you. Well, it's a crank, recharger, etc., radio, light, so on. Pretty big. That we showed you in our 3-day emergency packs when Paul was with us. So that's taken up some space. I brought some shelter building stuff versus just a Mylar sleeping bag. I brought wool gloves and a beanie. Brought some fishing stuff because there's a pond nearby I want to go try emergency fishing at. A lot of guys I'm finding are not carrying, let me move my coffee out of the way for you, an IFAK or a trauma kit. Now, I put one of my smaller ones on here, but it's still fairly big. I've got 2 tourniquets on it, shears inside, all the blood stopper stuff. In the pack itself is another small quart-sized bag of first aid gear, minor stuff, the Band-Aids and overnight meds and so on. Extra ammo, I brought the 10 millimeter Gerson today. I got a chest rig for it. We're testing that out. Carabiners, some extra Ranger bands. I've got a big knife on this side. I've got, just because I didn't think I could leave home without it, my very trusty Had It Forever K-bar. More snacks than I probably would take. The premise is I was on a day hike. I'm out scouting for where elk, deer, whatever, for next fall already. And I get turned around and I find myself in the deep forest in the dark. And now I need to figure that out. Remember, if you find yourself there, you should either hug a tree, which is a saying that search, rescue, and hunter safety and all that says, or stop, which stands for sit down, think, observe, and make a plan. I will remind you some of the rules I talked about in part 1. Most of the time, stay put. Now, especially if it's dark, you shouldn't go traipsing off. Watch Paul's story about when he got lost in the dark. And eventually he had to stop for the night and make himself an emergency shelter and a fire and so on. A lot of times you can fix yourself in the morning. Solve your own problem. Sun comes up, you can see the ridges, whatever. So maybe, or you can use your cranky uppy thing to recharge your phone, get your map again. In Western Oregon, if you walk straight enough, especially in the Coast Range, for about 2 miles, maybe 3 at times, and I know there's more remote places than that, you will hit a road of some sort. If nothing else, sit on the road. Walk the road until you get to a bigger road. And wait. Remember, part of the rules are tell people where you're going when you plan to come back. That way, when you don't come back, they'll call the search and rescue or whoever, or they'll come up themselves and try to find you. So help will be on the way if you set that up. Remember, we have other electronics out there. InReach and some other brands, Garmin watches, GPSs, you name it. But if you're out long enough and the cold zap's battery's faster, you have an issue with those, which again adds to weight if you're preparing. Most people do not take extra battery packs or the crank radio thing I have with me. I'm planning to be out here for 3 days, which is why I put more stuff in the pack. Okay. On the bottom, down here, it's all my shelter stuff, some emergency fire stuff. Snacks are in here. I do have a compass with me. So, what we're going to do, folks, is meet up with the property owner and get our radio from him. And we're going to put my pack back on and head out here, find a place to camp for the night, and I'll get back to you over the next 3 days. In between when I walked away and now, I have realized that I am lost. And I have figured out that I've made this teepee out of a bush. It's a Bigfoot. I know you always say, don't apologize. It's just the way I speak. Bigfoot bushcraft tube tent that I split open that made it about an 8x10 tarp of Mylar, super lightweight, goes into the little bag still. I've made a basically 3.5 sided teepee. My fire is going to be here. I've got the aluminum foil to reflect more heat into the shelter. Obviously, inside Mylar silver, hopefully will reflect all that heat onto me and not let any heat out. Put some sticks. Yes, that's what happens to Mylar. When you dink with it, in the process of testing and stuff, we had a hole. I have some duct tape, not that worried about it. I was out here scouting around and I realized all of a sudden I'm lost. It's not quite dark yet, but it is getting later in the day. And I have no idea where I am, so I decided I'm going to make this for the night. Now, another option obviously would be a little less wind protected lean-to shelter. Those are super simple, put them up pretty quick. Problem I have with a lean-to for tonight's weather is I want as much heat staying in my shelter with me as possible, which is why I went with this style. And it should draft out the top, so any smoke gets in there will go out. I'm not going to asphyxiate myself, and I'll have more wind protection than a lean-to. Chose this spot because it's kind of on top of the hill, so water won't be rushing down to low spots. Wind will not be rushing down. In this weather, I don't know if you know, but wind moves downhill, or breeze air moves downhill, and when at night it moves to colder places. It's heavier. So if you have your shelter facing uphill, that breeze blows in on you, which is why we're facing it downhill. This was a flat spot, a little more open. It took us about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, with my hatchet and my big knife to cut out the vine maple, make this area a little bit nicer, get the branches to put up here and wrap it up. I'm holding it in place with duct tape that I always carry with me, about 10 feet or so of duct tape you should keep with you. It's cheap, it's light, it's good stuff. And then I got my pack here, which will go inside. There's just enough room for me to lay down in it, and I'll give you a report in the morning or right before I go to bed, probably tonight, of how things are going. I'm not going to start my fire yet. It's about 35, maybe close to 40 degrees right now. I'm plenty warm. I'm going to go gather up a whole bunch of firewood to make it through the night. I don't want to waste that by having a fire going. I'm confident right now in my mind that I'm okay. I'm going to just hunker down, figure something else out tomorrow. Now, I mentioned a safety plan earlier. People know where I am. I'm going to go back up to the camp ranger, have a radio for the night so he can check on me, or if things really go south, I can get myself out of here. Of course, I have a headlamp with me today. I'm okay. I'm just going to be cold and miserable, most likely. I'm going to try to make that better with the fire. I have used aluminum foil in the past. It really works well to get that fire reflected toward you. So let's go get some firewood. I'll see you this evening. All right, there is the fire. I'm sitting in the smoke. There's what's left of the candle from earlier. There is a Siloom light stick that hopefully when the candle burns out will give me a little bit of light for just finding my way in the pitch black tonight. It is all of 7:30 and I majorly screwed up. The fire looks good, but it's a bitch to keep going. And I'm almost out of wood. What I found is I thought big wood would burn. It will not. So we'll see how I get through the night. So it's like 1:30 in the morning. I'm just trying to keep the fire going. And you can tell, even though it breaks and even though it has been dead a while, look at the water bubbling out of the end of that log. And that's why I can only burn small stuff or medium-sized stuff, because it's still so wet inside that it has to cook before it can start burning. Good morning. It was a rough night. I spent almost all of it up trying to keep this wood going. The problem is that the wood, even though it's not dry, but it's dead and you can break it and it's aged, it is still full of water. And every time I'd put it on my fire, it would take a long time to get it warmed up to boil the water out of it before it would burn. So I was limited to very small type stuff. I don't know if you can tell, but my shelter has leaned that way and tried to make itself into a lean-to instead of a teepee last night. It's still 30 degrees. It's a little bit warmer. We have a little cloud cover this morning. If you can hear it, I got my stove over here going, got a cup of coffee brewing. Lessons I've learned is that Mylar sleeping bags suck. I am sure that they are far better than nothing in an emergency, but getting a shelter over your head is probably better than that. And then figuring out how to put some sort of heat in that shelter, whether it's with a stove, a candle, I don't know. I'll work on that today. See if I can figure out some sort of heat in the shelter that doesn't take me staying up all night to get the keep the fire going. Sorry. What did work well is, even though the Mylar sleeping bag sucked a little bit, when it was working and not ripping, it did add a lot of heat. Stand by. Boiling my coffee away. Don't want to do that. All right. Get that under control. I know it's off camera for you. So it did add something. So for the weight, yes, they suck and they're hard to get around you and 1,000 other little things. But it definitely beats the heck out of nothing. And if that's what you choose to carry is just that and not some sort of tarp or whatever. This, like I said before, was a tube tent that we split and now is an 8x10 Mylar tarp. Probably do you better in the long run. I may readjust it today, find a little bit leveler ground, and make an actual tent structure out of it. See if that works a little bit better, seeing as how I probably am not going to try to stay up all night keeping the fire going. So, with all that, if you're here still, thank you very much. We're going to have a little clips, hopefully on Instagram, of some nighttime stuff. And we are going to go down here in a few minutes, check my fishing line that's in the water, see if I have breakfast. Otherwise, it is a meat stick for breakfast and a cup of coffee. I got plenty of coffee, doing okay on water. But we're out here all day today, good portion of tomorrow. I'll tell you that I am not as young as I used to be. Getting up and down off the ground is a booger, and sleeping on the ground is a booger. And I've got a slight headache going because I forgot to drink water yesterday. So before I let you go, the word of the day is water. All right. Talk to you in a bit. Good morning. I'm behind the camera, obviously, and I thought I would give you a little look at how obscure your emergency camp can be, especially if you're thinking about being found. Get my glove back on here. So up there in the top of the screen in the center, you should see some orange. I'll zoom in for you. And that is the shelter I stayed in last night. And you can see, yes, it's bright orange, but you can't just readily notice it. That's what I'm trying to get to. If I took a step about 4 feet to everybody's left, I wouldn't see that. Where I started this little expedition, about 15 feet to my right, I didn't see it. So it's bright orange, it's out in the open. There's little brush in between us relatively. But you notice that even at that, it is hard to see stuff. So if you're on the search team, one, all you searchers out there, keep your eyes open. Hopefully you can see just a little bit of my morning fire smoke coming up. You would smell that. That should alert you also. If you are the person in the camp and you think, I've got this bright orange thing, they've got drones, they've got all this other technology to find me, keep in mind, it's not as easy as you may think. So listen for those folks, pay attention, and just remember that you have to do your part to get found also. So we'll take a little break. We'll go up there and get a closer look. Shelter idea number 2. Basically, it's a tent. The reason I didn't do that last night is because I didn't think if I put a fire out front of it, I'd get enough heat into it. I don't think I'm going to try moving the fire tonight. I've got some candles, but you can't light candles in here, set the thing on fire. I don't know what I'm going to do for heat. Got to think about that throughout the day. I'm subsisting on my snacks. I have not seen any critters to shoot at. I have run out of my 3 liters of water, which I'm kind of surprised at because I didn't drink any yesterday. I know for those going, well, quit drinking coffee because it dehydrates you. I get that. So I'm going to take my water filter, go down to the local creek that we found when we came in, get my water refilled. So I'm good to go for the rest of the day and tonight. And I will check in with you before I hit the hay tonight. If I had hay, that'd be outstanding, more insulation. I don't, so I'll check in with you tonight. Here is day 3's morning fire. And I'm just kind of playing around, burning up some scraps I can find because I know that it takes a lot to find the right wood out here. And you can tell from the log and the longer log there, that was in the fire for hours and still did not burn through because it has so much moisture in it. Just a second ago, the bark that's there on top, even though it's thin and looks dry, was bubbling moisture out of it due to the heat. So even out here where it looks dry and so on, and somehow my phone went off in the middle of this, it looks like, there's moisture everywhere still. And you just can't appreciate how much moisture is out here buried in the ground. Sorry for bad camera work. When it looks like this. It looks dry. And for Oregon this time of year, it is dry. And you can see why sometimes when a wildfire gets going, it stays going. But trust me, that stuff's green, and even the stuff that's on the ground has so much moisture in it, it takes so much heat to maintain it burning, that out here, it is a constant chore to get even the smallest fire to continue to burn. And that'll burn out so quick that I'll be on it all night or all day if I wanted to. Just like I had to the first night stay up with it to maintain heat for me. So keep that in mind. Looks like we need to take a little break here and stay with us. No, I don't need to hold on to that so I can sit up. Yoga is paying off. For those laughing at me about yoga, I try to go a couple hours a week, and it's really been helping. I was able to bend over, put my shoes on this morning and everything. So I'm working on it. Here is what's left of our shelter from last night. It didn't hold up super well, but it did hold up. It was warmer inside. The heat shake type things did not activate, so it was a little bit colder than I thought. Slept in all my clothes in the bag. It's slick. I made a mat underneath me to keep me up off the damp ground. I had leveled it out earlier in the day when I built it, so I didn't slide all over the place, which was a blessing. I did bring a little inflatable pillow that is a sit-upon that I carry in my pack, just so your butt stays insulated from the snow and whatever else you're out there with. It got wet inside, wet enough to actually drip a little bit from my moisture. Surprisingly, though, it didn't freeze on the inside. The tree thermometer that's right behind you says it's 29 degrees out here this morning. Over here is a little attempt at a fire I made because I'm warm enough with the clothes I have on. It's dry. My clothes didn't get wet with sweat, etc. overnight. So I'm doing really good, is at least what I think I'm doing. This is a one-use shelter. We know that. Did it work? Yes. Before we get out of here today, we'll do a little bit of rundown on what worked, what didn't, what gear I ultimately brought with me. Because as I'm filming this, part one with the gear expo is out. Comment on there, I made a comment apparently it said, cotton kills. Well, in the West, out here, if you ask anybody in search and rescue, anywhere, any search and rescue, they'll tell you that. One of the comments was, cotton does not kill. Cotton, if when it's dry and cool or cold below freezing, you can insulate and it's fine. Well, that may be wherever you live, and that may be great when it's 20 degrees outside and you put long johns on and there isn't a drop of water in the snow or whatever you have. But in the Northwest, it's not that. Even when it snows, the snow's wet. The ground is wet here. It's damp. Cotton wicks terribly. That's why the loggers all chew off they don't chew on them, sorry. They have a special way they do the bottom of their jeans they wear so they're not on the ground, they don't wick up. You keep wearing your cotton. I'll keep not wearing my cotton. I'll wear polypropylene blends, polycotton blends, but 100% cotton absorbs moisture, it doesn't insulate, and then it gets cold and doesn't dry. So if you're wearing a 100% cotton t-shirt and you're out here like me and I'm moving around and it gets wet, it's just one more layer of cold your body's trying to warm up. Enough said on that. Clothing is everything. Staying warm initially is everything. Having the proper equipment that you've trained with and played with is a big, huge thing, probably everything also. With that, we'll give you guys a break for just a second, get reorganized, get some stuff done, and we'll get back to you in a little bit. Thought I'd show you the laid out extra large Amazon special Mylar bag. It is side to side in length, probably the size of a twin mattress or just under. Too big, I have come to find out. Too much space to heat up unless you were trying to get two people in you. The top silver part is supposed to be a hood you'd put over your head. And there's my backpack at the other end. So I thought I'd just show that to you real quick. It does work. It is going to be thrown away. I bought two at the time just for that purpose. Because it's got some rips in it, etc. It's Mylar. It's a single-use type thing. We've been out here a couple nights now. I'm going to get some of the gear that worked really well laid out, some of the gear that didn't, give a little bit of a gear review, and let me get set up for that. Welcome in. We're going to go over some gear. Before I get started, I want to say this. Anything I say is just my personal opinion. And having tested equipment, I do not know all of it. You know that. I have not tested every brand out there. I am not a trained survival expert that you might find on Alone or somewhere else. I'm just a guy that's had some classes, that's tested out some stuff, talked to a lot of people, seen failures, seen successes. Paul and I have been trying out survival gear since all you could get was a tarp and some of those he calls them fire starters, and strike anywhere matches. We've been going out and doing things like this just because. With that, I want to go over some of my successes, some of my failures or didn't work so well of the gear I brought with me. First, I talked about briefly just a minute ago that green emergency Mylar sleeping bag. I'm pretty impressed. I would like a smaller one. I'll go get that. It did just like Mylar does. It gets a rip in it. It didn't destroy though. So it gave me a layer, kept me warmer, dressed all the way, and with proper insulation under me on the ground, worked really well. Better than I was hoping for, to be honest with you. I'm not sponsored by Under Armour. I just like their stuff. And for the money, it's good stuff. It's expensive, but it lasts for years. My Under Armour hat, I carry in my bag all the time as an emergency, just go out in the field stuff in case it gets cold and I need my ears protected. It doesn't work so well for sleeping in because it falls off. I would suggest going out and getting a balaclava. Well, in the dark ages of the 80s, when I was in the military, the Arctic sleeping bags that were very tight mummy bags came with what they called a sleep hood. It was a green, imagine balaclava, that velcroed around your neck, kept your ears warm, kept your head warm when all that was out. And if you, turned over in the sleeping bag, kept you from freezing your ears. Worked great. Kept one forever. Don't know what happened to it. Now they make modern things that just go over your head called balaclavas. You can get them lightweight, medium weight, heavyweight for sleeping in, whatever. So take that for what it's worth. This is heavy for what it is. It's an inflatable pillow, sit upon thing. You can get lighter stuff, but I'll tell you, for insulating your rear end against sticks and the ground and so on, I think it was worth bringing. This one is a low-end Cascade Mountain Tech brand. Probably never heard of it. It worked really well. Didn't puncture on the stump I sat on all night long. So get yourself something like this. And when you don't need it, it is pretty small. Compared to the blue thing I've showed before that's lightweight, but takes up some space. I got this 100 feet of reflective, and it does reflect really well. Super tough, I guess, cordage, and it has like 2 strands in it. One of them is waxed cotton, supposedly to make fires with. The problem is it's so small that you would have to take all of it out of this 100 feet to have enough to start a fire with. The other thing is that I used it once and it looked like this. So I'm going to take it home, string it all out, untangle it, daisy chain it back together like I do my 550 cord, or at least find some way that it doesn't end up a bird's nest of crap. So I'm not real impressed with this. For cordage, it's good. For survival type stuff, it sucks. The reflective works great so you don't run over your tent in the middle of the night. My little Jetboil stove worked just like it's supposed to. This one's a little heavy. You can get lighter ones. Pick a brand. But for what I want, it's got a self-igniter. It's isobutol or butane, sorry. Isobutane or whatever. The camping screw on the bottom stuff. Works really good. The lid to the cup. This is a Toaks, T-O-A-K-S, light, vented lid. Outstanding to keep stuff out of. Boils your water/coffee faster. The cup I'm pretty impressed with. You may not be able to see it, but right here on the handles is a square notch so that you can, maybe I can get a little closer. There's a notch right here so it doesn't slip out of your hand when you're holding it. See, you hook your finger under there. Works great. The thing I'm really impressed with this cup, because I've used it more now than I have, it doesn't get the rim or the lip of the cup hot when you boil your coffee or your water. Spent all night, the first night, sitting up drinking hot water. I'm amazed that the cup, with literally boiling liquid inside, does not get so hot that you can't touch it or drink out of it. It's cooled off now. Lightweight, titanium, really good product. Love it. Comes in a little bag. I put my stove in there. I put the can of fuel in there. I put the stove stand in there, which is a little plastic thing. Puts legs on it. Here is the Ready Hour from Patriot Supply. Little radio light. Remember, it's got the little light on it. Okay. The radio receives really well up here in the mountains. Get the weather station. Been listening to that this morning. We've gone over this before, what its capabilities are. It's got AAA batteries, so you could take those out and go just off the onboard lithium ion if you wanted. What I liked about it was I took the little carabiner thing there, and hung it from the ridgepole last night. When I wanted light, I just flipped up this and turned on. Right now out here in this light, I don't know if you can see the little red light on it, but it's charging with this on top solar panel. A little heavy just in your day pack, depending on how much room and what you're bringing. Most people would not think they want to listen to the weather channels and things like that. If you were trying to take just music to listen to and it wasn't on your phone, this is a nice piece of equipment. Again, a little heavy, a little big for just your day pack, going to pick mushrooms or go walk around the falls or something like that. Otherwise, we've recommended before that you get one and put it in your 3-day, 72-hour emergency kit, 3-day bag that, given California wildfires, hurricanes, snowstorms, we've received back, just as a personal plug, information from people that saw our videos, go back and look at them, had Paul in them, that use those type of things and had stuff that they could just grab and go or helped them get through when the power was out, etc. So go back, watch our videos on that. A lot of good stuff there. One more thing. I got a few more, but I bought off Amazon, there's 6 in a bag, titanium tent stakes. Now the cool thing, well, I got the bag tied up. These particular ones have not only a tent stake with a rod, of course, but then they got a little hook on them, so you could put them in the ground, tie rope to them, whatever. And they've got a little piece of cord on them that is reflective, so you can find them and so you can see them. These, if you were planning to build a shelter or whatever your shelter was, very handy. I used them yesterday on the tube tent / my tent I put up. Kept it out like it was supposed to. Didn't rip out, which I was surprised. So again, they're a little heavy, but they are a very good part of your system if you're taking an emergency shelter system. Which kind of brings us to another question. Do you take an emergency shelter system Or do you just take some cordage, a couple space blankets, like a friend of mine does, and you really aren't planning or thinking you're ever going to be stuck out there, especially more than just overnight? That's for you to decide in your confidence, your abilities. Whatever you choose on that, though, definitely go out in the backyard, wherever it is, and test your theory to make sure it's going to work. Because I'll tell you what, a 6x8 tarp gets really freaking small when you try to make a tube tent out of it, or not a tent, but a ridge line, just tent down on the ground. It gets really small when you're trying to cover a 6-foot guy and go around you. There's more there than you think. My pack, we've shown it off already. Should be in section 1. It worked out well. Bring it up here so you can see it. There you go. It worked out well. I like that you can add stuff to it, take away stuff, depending on how big a trip you're going to take. I like that it's orange for hunting season. It's held up really well. Super comfortable to wear, even super loaded. So that worked out very well. My little snacks I brought with me, they were good for you. Grass-fed meat sticks, high-end stuff that my wife makes me eat to get better and healthier. I mentioned doing yoga. I want to throw out a shout out to Jocelyn Crawford, who was my yoga instructor. Been a huge help and helped me get more flexible, get better, to be able to do things out here for you guys. It's been a huge, huge help. My Diamond D Outfitters or Outdoors, let me double check because it's brand new to me. Diamond D Outdoors chest holster. Still getting used to it. It's convenient, but every time you gather wood, every time you do something, you're banging around on crap. It seems to me in the way, but at least it's not on my hips. It's not on my pants, because then I'd have to wear a gun belt, which gets in the way of the pack belt, and so on. My BK9 BK/K-bar knife has worked really well. You can tell we got it dirty. It's been just about the right size. The only thing I didn't like about it is the handles have no texture on them. It's well built. I mean, I have pried with it, chopped with it, done a bunch of crap with it today in the last couple days. But it is slick handled. And unless you're wearing gloves or good gloves, I don't like that too much, to be quite honest with you. Let's put that down there. I've got a brand new Leatherman with me. Let me dig it out here. It is, stand by. I got it for Christmas, so I don't have it memorized what model it is yet. It is the Leatherman Sidekick. So it comes with a clip, and it's designed to go in your pocket and a lanyard and so on. But what it has that the Wingman doesn't is a saw. Aha! A saw blade that I did use. Now, it's tiny, I get it. But it beats the heck out of no saw, and I used it a couple times this trip just to see how it would work. Comes in its fancy sheath. I mean, it's a Leatherman. I really like Leatherman brand stuff. Didn't have to crank off any rounds. Didn't see anything to shoot. I saw a crow fly over today. I'm really kind of surprised I haven't seen more critters. I found a very rotten, typical of Western Oregon, this kind of forest stuff, pitch stump that had a little bit of pitch and a lot of rot in it, and tried to use it. It worked okay, but it still had moisture in it and had more rot than it did pitch, or fat wood for some people. My gloves, I knew would work well. They're perfect for this temperature. At night, I put on my wool gloves to help insulate better. The clothing worked well. The Mackinac wool, Filson brand. I'm about ready to take it off. It gets so warm. It has been outstanding to sleep in. Great, great product. Expensive, but there's a lifetime warranty on them. Great product. Yeah, my outdoor research gaiters they've stayed up, they've stayed on, they haven't fallen apart, they've stayed in place. I've had my boots on and off with the gaiters on them. The understraps don't collect a bunch of crap. I'm really happy with them. This is the longest I've used them ever. And then my boots, which I told what they were earlier, but the Canadian Danner boots, you can't keep my feet warm, to be quite honest with you, but they're working well. Hollow brand alpaca wool socks, doing okay. My clothing, I got two, under all this, I have 2 layers of, stand by, brain fart, 2 layers of long johns, Under Armour brand. They've been really well. They've done what they're supposed to, which is wick away the moisture, help me dry out, kept me warm. One's a really thin, just long john top. One's their cold gear mock turtleneck top. It's been really good. So my clothing performed like I expected it to. I'm happy about that. My fancy old-fashioned hat performed really well, kept my head warm. And at night when I needed something a little bit more, the beanie worked well. Overall, my gear did what I expected it to do. And I have some training to do myself in setting up shelters. What I've learned and realized about shelters is quit getting in a hurry and quit making mistakes, which is going to be exceptionally hard when you are panicking, you're lost, it's nighttime, and you're just trying to figure out what you're going to do. So again, go out, practice with your stuff so you know how to put that up before you're trying to do it in a headlamp in pouring rain, which I got blessed not to have, or just cold. With that, I'll end this little segment. We're going to do a final wrap up. It's been an adventure. Yes, even I can spend the night on the ground. It was difficult. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't fun, not going to lie, but I got it done. We'll come back to you here in a little while with a final wrap up. All right, before we get to the outro, some gray jays came flying through, and there was a woodpecker. So had I been super desperate, I probably could have gotten something to eat that way. I didn't need to eat. As a lot of people have pointed out, 3 days you can survive without food, not without water. Water is a good thing. Having a way to get more water, your filter, etc., is a good thing also. So I would suggest always having some sort of life straw, some sort of water filter in your pack or water treatment. Very important. Now, with that, I will also say that the Air Force Survival School say if you don't have anything, just drink the water and we'll heal you when you get home. I want to talk for a little bit about how I felt doing this 3-day challenge for you. I came out here pretty confident because I've tested my gear and I know what gear I have, except for the Mylar bags we just got. So I had confidence in my skills, and hopefully I've portrayed those type of skills to you folks so you can have confidence in your abilities to get out there and do fun things and test it before it becomes an emergency and your mind gets playing games with you. It can be fun and it can be rewarding and satisfying to come out here for 3 days, get a fire going, sit on your butt tending the fire all night long, suffer through headaches, knowing that you have the ability to do that and the right mental preparation and the right equipment to be out here. As far as physical feelings, sleeping on the ground was cold, was hard to do. Getting up and down off the ground, bending over for a fire, challenged my physical fitness, not even fitness, but my physical abilities. But here I am. We made it through. I didn't break anything, didn't get hurt. It's satisfying when you get done. And that's the next thing. But it's super satisfying to be able to come out here with some equipment you haven't ever tested. I don't think I've ever spent the night in a Mylar sleeping bag. In fact, I know I have never spent the night in a Mylar sleeping bag or a Mylar tube tent. Most of the time I go with lean-tos, but it's too cold for a frickin' lean-to this trip. It can be very satisfying, like I said, but it can also be fun to be able to go back and brag that a heavy old guy was able to come out here and do this, and I'm not dead quite yet, folks. okay? And I don't mean that as a slam against Paul. Don't go jumping off the deep end. It's good to have that emotional satisfaction. It's good to have that bragging right for me. It boosts your self-esteem. It does all good things. So, what did we find out worked right and wrong? Well, we got a fire going. Our equipment to build a fire, my fire tube worked outstanding, but the environment didn't help that. So what didn't work was I didn't have a backup heat plan. My little heat tab things failed me. They were too old, so I've got to change that system. We know that Mylar is a one-trick pony, and it can tear and rip. I got in a hurry, and I tried to take some shortcuts setting up my Mylar teepee, and it fell over, and it leaned more and moved and let air in. Same thing with my tube tent. I keep calling it tube tent, but the tent thing I put up last night. I didn't build it quite as well as I should have, and therefore it changed on me. I did have a good head box. That worked great. It was warmer inside. It did what it was supposed to do. When you get to the point you realize you're lost, the emotion of, oh crap, now what do I do? The panic. That if you don't have that confidence going into it, the ability going into it, you're going to have to suffer on that. So how do you get confidence? Well, I get confidence by watching other people's videos, talking to other people, testing my gear, etc. And then coming out here and completing the challenge successfully, not failing. I suggest you get confidence in the skills the same way. Watch our videos, pay attention, go out, where it's safe, set up a safety plan. I had a radio to a person that's close by. I had a safety plan, people checking in with me just in case I failed or I fell down and got hurt. In all honesty, I rolled off of this stump and there was a big knot thing here that I landed on my side in the middle of the night. And I was pretty scared for a second or so. Keep your wits about you. Being scared, we all get scared, is working through that fear. And again, that gets back to self-esteem, believing in yourself, believing in your gear, believing in the people that, like me, that are suggesting what type of gear and how you go do that. My gear worked well. We've gone through most of it. I've got less stuff in my pack because a few pieces of food are gone. Most of the water's gone. My tube tents I disposed of. But my winter clothes are still here and there are things. I'm going to go through this. I've got to pare it down for a true day pack because it was way too heavy, I thought, and it's still a little heavy. I chose this firearm. I chose a 12 gauge. Yeah, they're heavy, but they met what I thought I might need. Didn't end up needing them. So, with that, if you have suggestions, please email us, make comments on this about gear you know works. And I'm going to ask this before I get into the final thing. If you know of a super lightweight with grommets in it, whether it's a tent or whatever, that's designed to be carried, that isn't going to bust your back in doing so or take up your whole pack, please let us all know, because I think that's what we're missing, because Mylar is a booger so it doesn't rip out. So go out, get the right equipment, and always the best equipment you can afford. Go out, train, practice, learn how to build fires, learn how to put up shelters in the dark, so that you're always the best prepared for the worst case situations.